Ladies and gentlemen, Cassandra Peterson.
Problem yesterday. I had to, so I was like,
good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last leg of the marathon that is Crypticon 2022. We have a packed house here. Thank you so much for showing up. But then again, I fully understand why. I have the distinctive honor of talking to this lovely human being twice previously in the last few years. Really, about the only introduction I want to and can give her is that I think she is a textbook case of a life well lived and a profoundly inspirational figure, and also funny as hell, most importantly. Please, let's give another warm welcome to Miss Cassandra Peterson. Amen. We were trying to get a vodka cran set up, but there's no cranberry, so. And there we go. And one of my best friends is going to be delighted to know that you are also a vodka cran girl, because he is a huge fan of vodka cran. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? How's everything going?
Everything's going terrific.
This is my first con in 2.5 years. Can everybody hear me okay?
Well, and the great thing is, at this point, you're now a New York Times bestselling author. Well, there you go. Get something done. I have to ask you just straight up. I have to tell you, I think it's a terrific piece of work. I think it is such a wonderful window into your life and your personality, and often very beautifully written. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
Tell us about.
I've never written anything really except screenplays. I was sort of realizing, I had a few comments about it, like you didn't get into the emotions as much. You didn't get this, and I finally realized kind of yesterday that I think I wrote it a little more like a screenplay. I've had several people comment. It's very film-like,
Cinematic, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cinematic. That's the word. Thank you. That I was looking for.
But yeah, just a really wonderful read. Give us an idea of the whole. How long have you been working on this? What's been the process of bringing it to life?
Is there a door up and open back there? Or no, there's not. It's just. No, it's not. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Say that again. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask you about the evolution of the book. How long have you been working on it? What prompted it to come out now?
Well, I really have been thinking about doing it for a long, long time. For 15 years, I started thinking I'm going to write this. And I started writing little stories, little segments of my life when I remembered something. I'd jot it down and I'd work on it, and I'd work on it in writing workshops and all that. And I'd then start putting little pieces together, and then I'd put them away and forget about it. And then finally, I was with my friend Pamela DeBar, who wrote I'm With the Band. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but
Michael DeBar's
world's biggest groupie and a very, very dear friend of mine. And she said, honey, if you don't go out and get an agent, get a deal, you're never going to do this book. It's just not going to happen. So I took her advice. She set me up with her agent, which was fantastic. And we took it out, and I don't know that he had that much hope for it. I really don't. It was kind of like, we'll take some people. And I got 5 offers from 5 different publishers.
I'm not surprised.
3 then serious ones, actually. And then we had like a little bidding thing going on. And then I went with Hachette, ultimately. Was the one I thought could do the best job bringing it up.
Oh, yeah, and it's a great publisher, too.
Yeah, so it was just 15 years, but when I finally set my ass down and actually did it took me about 1 year, but that was pretty much 1 year, 7 days a week. Anywhere from 3 to 6, 7 hours a day. So, yeah.
What was it like to see your name on the New York Times bestseller list?
Oh my God, I didn't believe it. I never thought in a million years it was going to be on the New York Times bestseller list. I really didn't. I mean, I was thinking about self-publishing for a while, you know? Yeah, I was like, you know, I don't know if this is really going to be something people are interested in. And lo and behold, bam, went on the New York Times bestseller list. I got to tell you, Hachette was more shocked than anybody, I think, you know, than me, maybe.
Wow.
But I don't think they were really expecting that, so very, very happy about that.
Well, those of us who have followed your career know that your life has taken a lot of very interesting and unusual turns. And cinematic is a great way to describe it, I think. And it feels to me like that is most definitely something that for much of your life has been very much, I think, living your best life seems like it's been paramount in your nature for all of these years, really. Would you agree with that? And
yeah, you said it a lot better than I could. But yes, I guess so. I mean, I hope so.
I think one of the many things that endears you to all of us is the fact that you really, on a very deep level, are one of us. You are a fan. You started out as a fan, and reading that early discovery of Vincent Price in the book and how much horror ignited things for you as a child is just really. I mean, I think pretty much everybody in this room can relate to that. What was it like?
So, or they wouldn't be here, right?
Exactly. You know, what was it like, kind of reliving that and articulating that as you were writing it?
Well, yeah, I kind of realized more and more as I was writing the book. I am a fangirl. That's why these people at these conventions are so dear to me. You know, seriously, it's. I grew up like, you know, loving Vincent Price, like, first of all, but then later I moved on to rock bands, you know, and then later when I was in Hollywood, I was starstruck by, you know, the people that I really, really liked, cared about, and wanted to be, and I will always. The fact that those people, many of them, treated me really well. Some did not, but it's stuck in my mind forever. And I mean, when I meet fans, I get how they feel. I've been there, I've felt that, and that's why I always want to give them, you know, be sympathetic and be nice and encouraging, because this is brutal to meet somebody you really like and then they turn out to be an asshole, you know? Wow, all your dreams are kind of shattered. And I've had that happen too, and it's like, why'd you have to do that? I mean, everybody's human, everybody has a bad day. Some days you don't feel well, you don't mean to come off cross or whatever, but in general, if you're feeling okay and things are okay and you're having a good time, you don't need to be a jerk to somebody, you know? So anyway, it was a big deal for me that I'm like one of you, I get it, and I'm just on the other side now somehow. I don't know how that happened.
You just mentioned something that actually I could go really deep in the weeds on this, but I will really try not to, is A, your interest in music, and B, how much amazing, like, music you experienced, like, firsthand live in the 60s. I was reading the book and just the whole rogues gallery of bands that you had seen live in the 60s. I mean, I'm going to go deep in the weeds on this, but you saw Love. You saw Arthur Lee and Love play. And that's like, it's my favorite rock album of all time. It's this very obscure LA psych rock band called Love. I don't know if any of you are fans. You saw them live, and then Buffalo Springfield, I think Wilson Pickett is in there. Tell
Animals,
us.
Wilson
Thank you.
Pickett, yeah.
Tell us about some of those shows and about what rock and roll ignited for you in your teenhood.
You know, it's funny. Somebody just wrote an article, and I wish I could remember his name. He's a big writer for Rolling Stone, and he wrote this article about how much he liked the book, which was very nice. But his main thrust, being working for Rolling Stone, was the music acts, the rock bands, and all of that. And it was incredible how he appreciated the fact that I was there, that I was with these bands that I met, and he sort of couldn't get over it, you know. And I'm so glad somebody picked up on that, because it was a huge part of my life. I was so freaking into music and bands, and I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be in a band, but girls were just not really in bands those days, you know? It was like one woman to every 90 million guys, you know? So my chances were very slim. So as I said in the book, I decided if I couldn't be in a band, I'd be with a band, you know, and hang out with them. So that was my route to being in the music. So anyway, I went off on a whole tangent here. Where the hell was it?
No,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, all this music, that's okay. Tangent away, you know.
You guys-
Please.
Okay, I don't know if having this will be a good thing or
sorry.
bad thing. Anyway, but yeah, what was the whole question? I had a really good
Just
answer.
kind of what music meant to you and kind of how it sort of turbocharged your inspiration when you were an adolescent and kind of that shift.
Yeah, it was, well, it was, I was a big Elvis fan. My parents were actually these kind of crazy Elvis fans that you see like in some TV documentaries that have little shrines to Elvis and stuff, you know, in their house. I mean, so it's probably my parents that might have gotten me into that. My family was, I'm happy to say, very much into music. My dad played the trumpet. He was an amazing trumpet player, and all of his sisters and brothers were in a band that my grandfather was the leader of the band. And this is, of course, in a tiny, small town, so it never went anywhere. But they had a real love of music and singing and dancing. And as I mentioned in my book, they were sticking me up on tables at restaurants and having me dance so people could throw change. So it was really weird. That was my first,
Sort of the budget
professional
version
gig.
of like satellite movie star
Well, I'm still doing it today. Here's the thing. But I encourage people to pay tea, not throw it at me.
And at least make it bills because they're lighter,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. The change hurts.
But yeah, I mean, what were some of your, God, so many of these acts that you saw were like, and I'm like, there's something one of my favorite accounts in terms of the kind of musical interactions you have is the whole story of you interacting with Jimi Hendrix, because it's alternately incredibly moving and also a little sad towards the end.
Yeah, it was sad. It was sad for many ways, ways of it. I don't know if you guys read about it, but yeah, I went to the Denver Pop Festival. Everybody was there. Frank Zappa, the Mothers of Invention, Joe Cocker, Three Dog Night, all these fantastic bands from the 60s, and Jimi Hendrix was the highlight of the concert. And I got bopped in the head with a canister of tear gas when everybody raided the stage, and I got sent back to the medic. And when I kind of came to, I staggered my way back to my seat and went by a little trailer, and there was a guy there who I say in the thing, he looked like a genie, and he goes, do you want to meet Jimi Hendrix? I mean, can you imagine today? You know, it's like, yeah, like giving candy to a whore. Candy to a baby, that's what I meant.
We've corrupted you already.
Anyway, so I did meet him, and I went in. Jimi Hendrix really was there. He's sitting there playing the guitar. We started talking. He was very interested in what the hell was going on out there in the front where people were rioting and everything. And we ended up like smoking a doobie and making out. And he told me to come by his hotel later afterwards, you know, I'm like, because I was still a virgin. And Pamela calls me the virgin groupie, just in case you're wondering. And anyway, that didn't turn out so good. We had a great time for a moment there, and then he went on and played his concert. Amazing show, of course. One of the last, or the last, I think, that he did in the United States before he passed away. And I tried calling him at his hotel, but he was incoherent by the time I got a hold of him and didn't remember who I was or what was going on or which way was up. And so that was the end of my little Jimi Hendrix story. But meeting him, talking to him, hanging out with him for a short time was, you know, like a dream come true. My God, can you imagine? So anyway, yeah, there was that. And there were bands coming through town. I lived in a small town, Colorado Springs, Colorado, but the City Auditorium had some amazing acts coming through there.
I was staggered to see what you had seen when you were there.
I mean, I was go-go dancing with The Who. In a club.
I love how you tell that story in the book too. It's hysterical.
Yeah, it Yeah, in the book, I'm go-go dancing at this club called Kelker Junction in Colorado Springs, and I'm on a big pedestal, probably about that high. And at the end of their concert, the Who, they, you know, what's his name? I can't think. Okay. No more. Yes, thank you, Pete Townsend. Started smashing his guitar, and sparks and fire flew out of it, and I leapt off of my pedestal and twisted my ankle. And I was so pissed at them. I did not want to even meet them. They ruined my whole night. Oh yeah, that was just one of the times.
He's still alive, so it's not too late. He should be so lucky.
Anyway, we better get on with it, or I'm going to be telling some stories nobody wants to hear.
There we go. And many of them are in the book.
Yeah.
One of the things that has always fascinated me is kind of your Italy period, which you go into in some detail in the book. And that was after a career as a showgirl and a lot of work in Vegas, and kind of, I think, do you feel like that time in Vegas? Describe the evolution of you being a showgirl and then deciding that maybe you wanted to go somewhere else, because you got some career advice on that, didn't you?
Oh, yes, I did, yeah. Yes, first I was a showgirl when I was 17 until I was 19. And the advice I got was from Elvis Presley, who actually told me to get the hell out of Vegas because there was no place for a young girl to be. And I think he was right about that. I still stay away from it. So I did leave Vegas and I went over to Europe with the intention of being in the Lido de Paris on Champs-Élysées, and I was not tall enough to get in the show. So I ended up hanging around Europe, eventually getting in a band. But I do think what you were saying is, did Vegas prepare me for the rest of my travels there? It definitely did, because I came at there's so many weird situations in Vegas, being a 17-year-old and meeting all these different celebrities and everything, that I think I was pretty much prepared for anything after that.
Wide-eyed in Babylon, but not for long.
Yeah, exactly. I got an education real quick there. Straight from high school and the Girl Scouts. I was still a Girl Scout when I went to Vegas. I had to resign. They don't have badges in being a showgirl.
Fortunately.
So, anyway, okay, I'm going to shut up.
Please don't. Then you'll leave me floundering up here by myself, and it'll be a drag. But so tell us about Europe. What was Europe like at the time? Because there was a lot. You touched on some of the social unrest that was happening, here in America, obviously, that you sort of bore some witness to at the Denver Pop Festival and stuff. Was there any of that in Europe when you were there? And if not, what was the atmosphere like for you?
It was funny, yeah. In America, because of the Vietnam War, there was a lot of civil unrest, a lot of marching, a lot of protesting, which I was involved with too. But when I went to Italy, it was very funny. Italy is a funny country. It's my favorite country, I think. But every day from my pensione, I would look out and there would be marches for communism. There would be marches for socialism. There would be marches for democracy. And the government over there changes like every week or something. It's like, like you asked about the weather here, you'd ask, well, who's running the country this week, And honestly, it was like, it changed all the time.
And sometimes violent upheaval too.
Yes,
Which I think mostly the worst of that seemed to happen, I think, after you had left. But were you getting indications of that while you were?
Oh, I was wearing, this is my favorite t-shirt I wore in Italy, and everybody loved it. It was a hammer and sickle made out of the American flag. Okay, not so PC, but it really worked over there.
Well, I would imagine it would.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the line, you also ended up in doing walk-ons and bits in a couple of movies, including you mentioned a Fulci film that you were involved in.
Yes, Le onorevole piacciono alla donna. I'm sure you've all seen it. It was really bizarre. It was a comedy film starring this very famous comedian, Mando Buzzanca, and I played a nun. Typecasting. And my sister played one too. My sister played my sister. We were sisters. And anyway, the funny thing is Lucio Fulvi, who's like the premier gore master of Italy, was the director. And of course I didn't know who he was then. I mean, you know, I only found out recently actually that it was directed by Lucio Fulvi. So that was kind of an awesome surprise thing. It was like, how did I get there? You know? Okay, I'm shutting up again.
The hell with Kevin Bacon, I think everything is 6 degrees of Cassandra Peterson at this point. And honestly, I would assert that.
Yeah, speaking of the book, I mean, when you mentioned that, people keep likening the book to me and the book to Forrest Gump, which I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but
I would use a different, I would use a Candide type figure, you know, I think more along those lines, more literary. And again, I mean, I really, again, aside from screenplays, you haven't, here, go ahead, you can put it down there. I have most of these memorized. I want to get back to the writing style of the book, because although you said you only had really done, most of the writing's been screenplay writing, I think it served you well in terms of telling the story. And I like the fact that it's mostly chronological, but not totally. And I actually appreciate those bounces back and forth in terms of the time frame of your life. Was that, did you go in thinking that it was going to be a point A to point B chronological story? Where along the lines did you think, oh, you know, I'll actually pull this vignette of my life out and put it after this one instead of before it? What was that evolution like?
Yeah, I did start chronologically. I did start, I was born at a very young age, you know, and then I went on from there. And then later, because I know a little bit about writing anyway, I knew that, you know, you need to shake it up a little bit. And I went to what people really want to hear about most, which was how did I become Elvira? How did that start? Why did it happen? Where was it? So I put that at the top of the book so people didn't fall asleep before they got to that.
It's an effective dramatic device, I think. It really is. Because it gives that peg that most readers are familiar with. It lays down that peg, and then you build around it with kind of all the rest of the things in your life that led up to it. And that's a sensational plot device. That's good screenplay construction, actually.
Again, I think it comes from screenplay construction. Most of the things and classes I've been to and studied over the years have been screenwriting. So that's why I do think the book came out a little more cinematic, like you say, because that's all I know. I don't know how to write a novel or how to write anything else. I wrote 3 goofy little novels with John Paragon, my writing partner who played Chompy the Genie in Pee-wee's. He and I wrote 3 novels together, Transylvania 90210, The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, and Camp Vamp, which are still out there somewhere. They were little young adult novels that were really goofy. I read them lately. Oh my God, the writing is so bad. So bad. I'm embarrassed. I wish I could take them and rewrite them because the story was good, the writing was bad. We didn't know what we were doing. We got this deal to do it. But one funny thing about that is John Paragon and I were so close that I would write the first chapter, he'd write the second, I'd write the third, he'd write the fourth. That's how we did the books because our voice sounded so much like Elvira. You know, us two together, it was like we talked like Elvira. So, yeah, I mean, that's not normally how people write books, is you write the first, I'll write the second. But they were fun, and they're out there floating around somewhere, I'm sure, but they're really embarrassing, so don't find them.
So now I'm intrigued about the whole, your writing of screenplays. Tell me about when that started and kind of what you've worked on, and are there any of these that you're currently actively trying to develop?
Well, I've written several screenplays. Only 2 got made. One, of course, was Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and somebody else paid for it, thank God. And 2 was Haunted Hills, which I finally just decided I would write, and we took my money and we made the movie because we couldn't get another film deal after Mistress of the Dark did not do well at the box office. Then you just give up. No matter who you went to, nobody wanted to do another Elvira movie. And you'll read in my book how it didn't do well because of the distributors going bankrupt the day the film was released. So, but that doesn't matter. It didn't do well. Producers, production companies don't see the bottom line, the money, and they're not interested. So that was a real bummer for me in my career. But so we wrote those 2 movies, John and I, and another writer, Sam Egan, wrote the first one with us. I wrote the second one pretty much on my own and in a real rush. John had to pull out at the very beginning because he was working on Pee-wee's Playhouse. So then I've written about 1 million more screenplays. I wrote one with Judy Tenuta that we sold to Showtime called More Than Friends. Strangely, about a lesbian couple who is living in the Midwest, and that was so weird and coincidental. Yes, it was. Dear God, you guys. And we sold it, but it was never made because new people came in at Showtime and decided not to do it.
The regime change and everything previous goes by the wayside. Yeah.
I mean, people don't understand how hard you were. People are going, you should make another movie. It's like, I know I should. I would love to. But you have to go out and sell it so somebody can pay for it. And you go out and I think it's, I don't mean to be like sour grapes, but I think it's harder for a woman to go out and do it, or at least it certainly has been in the past. Yeah.
Something harder for a woman in terms of getting ahead.
Yeah, isn't that a weird coinky? Anyway, yeah, so I'm out there selling. We wrote so many movies. I have so damn many movie scripts on my shelves for Elvira. You wouldn't believe it. Elvira, oh God, I mean...
Like Elvira in the Hood? Like Elvira in the Hood, I'd be down. I'm sure everyone in this audience would be too.
I did that one, honestly, Elvira Goes to Hell. That was one of them.
Oh, man.
Just travel, a buddy picture.
Fingers crossed. Have you thought of maybe pursuing a graphic novel route with some of these and adapting
I
like that?
have. Funny you should mention it.
Wonderful.
I can't say too much about it, but might be, who knows.
You sort of heard it here first. And actually, you brought up another very interesting point, which you've always struck me as someone who can really roll with punches. In terms of like technology and kind of where the marketplace goes, what has and it seems like so far at least, I mean, you've got the Elvira 40th anniversary, super, ultra, mega industrial size special, I forget the exact name, where we get to see you, we get to see Elvira back in the saddle, doing her horror hostess thing and being funny as hell. And
Shudder.
On Shudder, yes,
I think it's still airing on there. If you want to see
it is, yeah, I actually was catching up on it last week, so, 4 great, very wonderful movies, of course, starting with yours. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. You chose some really cool movies. Obviously, The House on Haunted Hill, as anyone who's really followed you knows that's like totemic for you. But you chose a couple of other interesting movies, Messiah of Evil, and I forget what the 4th one is so far.
I forgot it too because it was really bad.
If anybody's going to lose track of movies they've hosted / talked about,
oh, it's me. They've all blended into one giant movie.
Exactly.
You can only host so many before your brain just dries up and turns into dust.
But as a fan of Messiah of Evil, what drew you to include it? It's an awesome movie. What drew you to including that as part of the series?
Well, they suggested it, Shudder, and I was immediately like, oh my God, this is so fantastic. Friends of mine are in that movie, old friends that I used to work with in Mama's Boys when I was on the road.
Holy crap.
Yeah, Michael
6
Greer.
degrees of separation, everyone.
Michael Greer, and it was just amazing. So when they showed me that title, I was just like, oh my God, yes, I've got to have this movie. And it's a pretty damn great movie. I mean,
it is. Yeah. I'm sure a fair amount of you have seen it. Messiah of Evil was like the very first feature film done by Gloria Katz and Willard Hayek, who wrote the screenplay for American Graffiti and became pretty hot. And also,
so bizarre, right?
Yes. Almost as bizarre as Howard the Duck, which they were also the architects of. But it's a great movie. It's a very
They were really diversified.
Yeah, there you go. There's range for you. But yeah, I thought that was an inspired choice, and it was fun to hear you riff on it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I hope you guys can catch it on Shudder. It's called Elvira's Very Scary, Very Special Special. And I'm with my best friend, Derek, the skeleton, who
It's good to have
I've
Derek
hauled
back.
around my whole life. So Derek stars in it. He drives the car. He's my chauffeur. But it's really, really fun. And some of my all-time favorite movies, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, of course, hello, and House on Haunted Hills, too. So, I really had a great time doing that. I haven't been able to host movies for a long time. That not that the opportunity doesn't come along that often. So it was good to be back in the saddle, as you say, and I hope you guys can check them out. They were fun.
It was like seeing the Stones get back on stage after all those years. We're getting the band together. It was really
Do I look
seriously.
as old as Mick Jagger?
No, you do not. Thank heavens. You
I
do
love
not.
Mick Jagger.
And actually, that's another thing that I kind of never really talked to you about is I've always loved your style of commentary on films because it is often howlingly funny, but there's also an undercurrent of love to it, I think. And that reads through, and that's why we're in this room, listening to you talk about it. Maybe tell us a little bit about just the evolution of your style. I mean, we know that Vampira plus Morticia equals Elvira, basic formula, but there's a lot of layers in there. Tell us about making Elvira.
Yeah, they're actually creating her, which from the beginning I didn't know quite where she was going to go. It was like a slow, changing all the time. But we sort of thought about her, John and I, as the hooker with the heart of gold, which is kind of a Mae West character too.
Oh yeah, totally.
Mae West was like this tough, ballsy broad, but then she would walk through a room and she'd see the cleaning lady on her hands and knees scrubbing the floor, and she'd say, "How are you, Lil? Good to see you. How are the kids?" So she came off as this tough, woman, but with this really soft spot especially for
The
underdogs. Yeah. So that is kind of when we finally developed Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, the movie. We had to think about what is Elvira really like in real life, because before that I'm just hosting movies, just talking to people. But we had to think, what would she do in this situation? How would she handle it? And I wanted her to come off as tough and gritty and doesn't take any crap. But I did want her to also help people, and that was kind of with the teenagers, trying to help them, get away from this oppressive kind of society that they had to grow up in their town. So yeah, that was something we really thought out and tried to think, where did she come from? How did she get this way? Why did she look like that? We dropped her off at the Pick and Save orphanage, and and the mother that was a sorceress in the background. So yeah, there was I think that was all pretty much put together and built with the movie Mistress of the Dark, and that kind of set her in who she is.
And it's really, you kind of created a neat little, the best comedies create their own little pocket universe of characters with their own rules, and even if they're goofy, they make sense in the end. And you really, I think you and Mr. Paragon did that very well with that movie.
Thank you. And it's funny, and we're very often, John Paragon, by the way, also directed and wrote Pee-wee's Playhouse, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I mean, he was involved very much in that, and it's funny how much Pee-wee kind of has that kind of vibe too. Not the same as me, but and Paul Rubens and I are very good friends, and we have so much in common, and we don't really have anybody. We say it's a very, very small club that we belong to. It's me and him. The characters who kind of had to be fleshed out, and what would they do in this situation, and it's so bizarre that we were in the groundlings together, and we both ended up doing these weird characters that we both own, which is super nice.
Which is, and again, yes, kudos to that. I think anyone who owns the intellectual property, they were part of the architecture of. It's a hugely inspirational story, no matter how you slice it. It's awesome that you've been able to hold on to that. And I've also been consistently impressed with how you have interacted with the community and with fans. I think and again, I think part of that comes from the fact that you are very much one of us. And just kind of on a lighter tangent to that, you still follow the genre, obviously. What are some of your favorites right now? What are some of the like horror films or TV shows or literature or whatever that between spare breaths you've had a chance to enjoy or experience?
God, thanks for asking. I don't know.
I mean, not that you have like very much time in between everything else you're doing.
I don't really have enough time to watch all of this stuff. I'm happy to say that, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but All About Evil, a movie that I was in. Has anybody seen that movie? Yeah, it stars Natasha Lyonne, who's very kind of hot right now. But it's a really great movie directed by Peaches Christ.
Yes.
You know, what movie would be great if it was directed by Peaches Christ?
It's a wonderful world to live in that we have a movie directed by Peaches Christ.
I mean, you know, the movie is scary, it's horrific, it's gay, it's all the things, you know, that it should be. But that is just coming out. It's having a new release right now. And if you haven't seen the movie, you really must. It's a really funny movie. I play a totally normal, straight-looking mom, which is so bizarre. It's so hard to do that. That was acting. Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to ask you actually about the challenge of playing a character that's very unlike yourself. Is that something that you would be interested in doing now that you've kind of had a taste of it with All About Evil?
I don't know. I never really considered myself an actor. I don't know that I'm a very good one. I really hooked on this character which I created. When I have to do other roles, which I've done a time or two here and there when friends ask me, well, The Munsters, hello, that's coming out. I don't know if you guys see that. And again, I play a super straight, normal character. I play the one character in the movie that's just like a normal person. And it's really hard to be normal. I don't know if you guys have ever done it. Don't try.
I'd be disappointed if you hadn't said that at some point.
The only reason I did that movie is because Rob Zombie was directing, and for years and years I said to Rob, when are you going to put me in one of your movies? And he goes, believe me, you're not old and haggy enough yet. And so finally, I'm proud to say, I finally reached that pinnacle of being like this. He put me in this movie. And I play a real estate agent. I'm trying to sell the Munsters a house. And it was so much fun. We shot in Budapest, Hungary, and had the greatest time. There were so many COVID tests going on there. You guys would not believe it. I got to be tested every 15 seconds. I swear to God.
Are we done?
What?
No, she sounds like she's singing an industrial record right now.
We're gonna trade you guys mics because we've got. I mean, it's donation. It's the convention. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I hope that works. Anyway, it was a fantastic experience working with Rob and Sherry. I love them, and I've known them for like 30 years. What's going on? Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah. Anyway, working with Rob and Sherry was too much fun. We had such a great time. We stayed in the same hotel thing, and we were just hanging out all day. I've known Rob for 30 years, since he was in White Zombie, and I introduced them at Universal Amphitheater a million years ago. And this was the first time we got to really hang out, really have fun together, really talk, and the whole experience of shooting the movie was just freaking awesome. I had the best time. So, I hope it's going to translate. I have not seen anything from it. Uh-oh.
Hello.
Here, borrow mine.
It's okay, no worries. Oh, that's right.
Hello?
No,
Let me interview you. So,
I was born when I was very young.
you stole my line.
Grab your lines.
So who chose that tie for you? Oh, nothing. No, nothing. No, go ahead.
That's right.
We'll share.
I'm audition. Oh.
All right. We could be like the old school 50s and 60s science fiction movies with the reporter going, tell us your take on the nuclear radiation. So, and then one of us will be badly dubbed, kind of, relating the exposition. It'll be great. Now I just lost my tangent. Hello, thank you for the glass of wine, Eric. Much appreciated. Yeah, this is true. Well, then again, maybe not. Another thing that I actually wanted to kind of pick your brain about was your time as a comedian, your career working with the Groundlings, because that, again, there are all of these different movements that you've kind of been part of, and you're part of a mini comic renaissance, when you were part of the Groundlings. Could you talk a little bit more about that and some of the stellar company that you actually were working with?
Yes, thank you. I was working with the Groundlings. You guys, I don't know if you've heard that. If you've been in LA, you have, for sure. Thank you. So many actors, comedic actors, have come out of that. But back in the day when I was there, the Groundlings was fairly new. And I was just in a fantastic group with Edie McClurg, Phil Hartman, Paul Rubens, John Paragon, and it was amazing. It was like, I don't know, I joined this group because I went to see their show. They were incredible, and I just thought, I have to do that. And the comedy improv has turned out to be the best thing I ever did, because it really made me be able to think on my feet. Not right now, because I just had drank that. But normally, made me able to think on my feet, and really, really had a lot to do with me becoming the Elvira character, because we had to come up with our own stuff. We had to write it. We had to think about it. So it was, if you're ever moved to LA, anyone, I would suggest joining the Groundlings company. They actually have classes now online. It is so awesome. I don't get any kickback for this. I just say that if I hadn't gone to the Groundlings, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today.
And that really shows, actually.
That shows in the best way, I think. There's everyone, it's a cliche, but it's true. Dying is easy, comedy is hard. And I would imagine, I know, obviously we can see from the end result that your experience, your comedic background is what really sold things as far as you becoming Elvira, because I love the story of your actual audition process and how un-Elvira you looked at the time. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I wrote about this in the book, but I showed up for the audition. I was on my honeymoon with my husband of 25 years, and we're on our honeymoon. I get a call from a friend who said they're looking for a horror host in LA at a small local station, and she thought I would be perfect. And she knew the director, and he would really like to interview me because he saw me in the Groundlings. So I said no, thank you, because I'm on my honeymoon. And I was in Colorado. We couldn't afford anywhere else. And so when I got back, they were still looking for a horror host. I went on the interview. I went wearing my little, I remember exactly what I was wearing, this little turquoise short dress with white sandals, they're candies, and my red hair, and I go walking in to a room full of people in black with fangs and black hair, and all looking at me like I was some kind of freak, and I'm, like, I'm the freak here. But anyway, thankfully I kind of improvised the script, which was pretty darn bad. I improvised a little, threw in some jokes, and obviously ended up getting the part. Boy, were all those other girls pissed, I gotta tell you. They were. But nobody told me to wear a costume, hello. Anyway, so I got the part, and well, the rest is history. Here I am talking on stage with one microphone.
As you can tell, you can feel the love in the room, I'm sure, I was gonna, if you would like, we're definitely can turn it over for questions now. Heaven knows there's lots to talk about, so folks, let's have some questions for Cassandra. You back there, yes.
Hi, my name's Twig.
Twig.
Come up here. Yeah.
Or Actually, why don't I just do this? Twig, nice to meet you. Outstanding ensemble. Well played, by the way.
Thank you. Hello, obviously honored to meet you. My name is Twig. I just had a question. To me, the audiobook means so much to me. Everyone obviously wanted to read the book, but the audiobook was most important to me because 10 hours of listening to you speak about yourself and your life is like more than multiple movies. And I was just wondering what that experience was for you that differed from the book and how recording that was, and maybe what was the experience and process of the audiobook that you made.
That's a great question. Thank you.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's so much noise going on behind me, that's why I asked.
Twig was asking about your experience doing the audiobook as a separate experience, basically, from the writing, and how much it meant to him, and what that bringing that to life in an audiobook form was like for you.
Thank you. I had never done anything like that, like an audiobook. I didn't know what the process would be. I went into a little studio in LA and sat there about 8 hours a day, every day for, I think, 8, 9 days, I don't remember, but talking about some of those things, like in particular the AIDS epidemic, was so hard that I would start talking about it, start sobbing my freaking eyes out, run to the bathroom, compose myself for 30 minutes, come back, start again, start crying. I thought I would never get through some of that stuff. Talking about the AIDS epidemic, I mean, for any of you that were there or were involved, you're way too young, but you'll never understand. Nobody will ever understand what that was like unless you were there. I had everybody I knew wiped out. I mean, unlike COVID, when you got it, you died, period. No, maybe I'll live. You died. So seeing all your friends one after another get AIDS, and then knowing, well, within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they'll be dead, was just so hard to, I can't even talk about right now. Anyway, so going through the book, talking about that things, talking about the relationship with my mother, which was a difficult one, was really hard and emotional to get through. I had a hell of a time. I mean, we were supposed to do the whole book in 7 days, and instead it had to extend because I was verklempt so much. I had to start over, in some segments. But yeah, I haven't even heard it myself yet because I'm a little bit, I have not heard it back. I don't know if I want to hear it. It's very emotional to do that. I don't know how writers get through it. If it's about other people, I guess it would be okay. If it's about your own life, it's really heavy, It's really like, hard to talk about.
It's interesting that someone, I forget who, said that there was maybe a lack of emotion in your book, because I honestly haven't read the book. I only wanted to listen to you speak and read it because I wanted to hear in your own words your life experience. And I just felt so much of it in your audiobook, and I've listened to it like 3 different times because I just love and enjoy you. It's wonderful.
It's on page 2. Yes.
I've been curious, you've had this for almost 40 years. How did you wind up in the music video for Born in East LA?
Please, scoop.
Born in East LA, right? When I was in the Groundlings, so many people used to come in all the time and hire various Groundlings for their movies, and that's what happened. Cheech and Chong came into the Groundlings Theater and saw several of us, hired, like John is in that movie, John Paragon, and many other Groundlings, but they hired me and another girl from the Groundlings, Catherine Bergstrom, and then another girl they found somewhere else, somebody that nobody's ever heard of, Rita Wilson. She was married to Tom Hanks. It's like, what? And she wasn't married to him then, but me and Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump, we're the same. But anyway, Anyway, so the three of us played Charlie's Angels, and our famous line was, "Help me, Wamba," which, you know, classic. No one can ever forget that line. Anyway, so I became friends with Cheech and Tommy Chong, and I worked with Cheech a lot. We worked in a movie together where we played husband and wife called Echo Park. Worked in another movie, well, then he hired me for Born in East LA for the video. The song was really, really happening then, and I have a thing, where, you know, I don't know, I live in LA, and everybody thinks I'm like, you know, a chola, so we're all like always out there doing that, you know, chola crap, and so it was perfect, fit right in, the neighborhood. I feel like I was born in East LA.
You want to do it first? You know. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you. So I'm glad you brought up your friendship with Paul Rubens. I've been a big fan, well, my sister was before I was even born, for both of you. And I really, really hope somewhere in that list of screenplays, is there a family sitcom where you two play parents? Because... Is there a family sitcom where you and Paul Rubens could play parents? Because that's a dream project of mine. I would love to see that. Or if anyone here wants to help me write it, I think we could.
Oh, can you imagine what a screwed up child we would have? Maybe you? Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to see that. No, I don't know. It would be fun to work with Paul. I don't know. You know, he has Pee-wee, I have Elvira. We've thought over the years of doing something together, but it's never really panned out. I wish it would. I think it would be so much fun, but I think we live on two different planes of reality, and maybe never the twain should meet, or it could be, who knows, what the, I don't know. It could be like the end of the world.
Yeah, that one had a question right there.
Wave your hand.
Thank you. If there's any moment you would relive in your career, what would it be?
What? Moments I could relive in my career? Let's see. You mean to do them better, or just relive them because they were fun? Just because they were fun? I swear, making Elvira Mistress of the Dark would probably be, it wasn't just a moment, it was several weeks, if not months, but doing that film was the most fun I ever had without laying down. And I think the movie reflects that. I really think the movie reflects that because it really kind of connects, you know, with people. But every day of that, being able to write it, see it come true on the screen, act it out, make changes, make little tweaks and everything, and be with John and my friend Sam, and you know, have a pretty good. I mean, they let us pretty much do what we wanted. They were pretty great about it because Brandon Tartikoff, who was the head of NBC at the time, he just loved the Elvira character. You know who he found it also? The nanny. What's her name? Fran Drescher. Yeah, he met her on a plane and pretty much let her, you know, do what she wanted to do, and it came out much better than mine did. I mean, you know, it worked out much better for her. Yeah, that doing that film was just the most fun. Really, 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 everything about it. It was a dream come true. I wish I could do it again. Yeah, we do Elvira Mistress of the Dark retirement home.
We have time for one more question, and it is you, sir.
Doing everything. Here you go.
Speaking of books, I'm kind of moving on a new chapter thing, and I know you've done a little bit of that recently too. I've got a couple of things. I don't know if you're interested. I'd love to pass them on to you if you don't have them. I got this from the Price family, and it's not signed, but it's a first edition, 1965, and it's actually got, I would say probably stains from the Price Kitchen in it, but if you're interested, I'd be more than happy to give this to you. It's a great book, great book. And along with it goes that, and this was taken about the year you were born, and unfortunately, the autograph is faded, and I can't do anything about that, but that's yours if you want it. Thank you. Yeah, I got one more too. I'm clearing it out. I am clearing stuff out, and I wanted you to get this. That is a picture of Vincent Price at the time you were in the Groundlings. And I took this 1982. I was taken in 1982. Sorry, it's just a Kodak, but nope, just like to say I appreciate and everybody else appreciates you coming up to Seattle all these years. I mean, you did the costume place down, in Seattle a number of years ago when I was there, and you've been gracious to my wife when I brought her here, and don't know where it's going to go in the future, with things now, but just want to make sure bring a lot of joy to people, and I thought I'd give you some, and I think you might get a little bit of joy out of yourself.
I think I speak for everyone in this room, and I think that Cassandra has touched everyone's heart at one time in their life. Ladies and gentlemen, Cassandra Peterson. She'll be signing autographs until 4 o'clock, and she's got full autobiographies. Thank you all so much for coming, and unpleasant dreams. Actually, you should say that. Unpleasant dreams.
Unpleasant dreams.
Thank you, baby.